Hey there, David here. Welcome to the channel. Today I would like to share with you guys, which in my opinion, my most personal video. So I hope that you can relate to it. Obviously it has to do with my personal experience. I'm going to stand up so you can see what I'm going to be talking about. It's a medical condition, but I hope to bring some hope or some benefit, or some of you can relate to this condition or situation. So I'm going to stand up for you guys to see. You probably would see myself getting cut out of the video, so you can see the back of the shirt. So hopefully you were able to tell that what I'm going to be talking about is ulcerative colitis. This is, again, very personal, and I'm going to try to make it in a sequential order. I don't want to repeat things and make this video super long. So let's jump right into it, and I'm going to have some notes so I don't repeat myself, so it's not a scripted video. So at about 15 years old, think of a guy, teenager, middle school, kind of getting ready to move on to high school. The reason I say I should have been already in high school by 15, but I went to middle school and high school in Mexico, so there is 3 years of middle school and 3 years of high school, so it's just a bit different than 2 and 4 like here in the US. So my brother, that he probably doesn't know, and he wouldn't unless he watches this video, one of my brothers brought in this book called Transcendental Meditation, or in Spanish was Meditación Trascendental, which back in the day, or a few years back, what you now call yoga, right, used to be called Transcendental Meditation. And it had more that sort of spiritual implication that now doesn't have, or that you think of yoga just like a physical practice with some spiritual background. But I was doing the hardcore spiritual, and to make the part short so that I don't get super detailed on that, one of the things that they promote, or they think it's good for your health, is to do fasting. Not eating, say, in the morning, but I took it to an extreme, and I started fasting. I remember the whole summer, 3 months, 2.5 months, but I was eating almost very little, not even enough. If you're that age, 15 years old, you need a lot of energy to grow, to play sports, whatever you're doing. So I went super hardcore on the fasting, and back then I thought I was doing good because it was for my health and so forth. But I overdid it. It was unsupervised, so it was the starting point of this whole. The reason I'm starting with this, you'll see in a moment. But I know at that point, that was a breaking point. My immune system got compromised because I was not eating food enough. And I can relate now that this was just a few months, probably less than a year, after my grandma, my mom's mother, had passed away, and I saw a lot of changes. My mom especially was very close to my grandma, and I'm making this connection because medicine, or Western medicine, doesn't make connections between things like this happening in health issues. You might say, well, you stop eating or get a little depressed for a few days, few weeks, but then you get over. So for me, I wasn't depressed, but I was doing this maybe unconsciously to, cope with the changes there. So that was the first event. So I was about 15 years old, and I started seeing some changes, getting a little isolated, not as social anymore, less energy. So that was the first thing. Then went into high school. Again, it's 3 years there, and I kind of managed. I coped, but on the last year of high school, around 18 years old, Now that I see it, I was already thinking, okay, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go to school, kind of what I'm going to be doing as an adult, right? And I think unconsciously also I started feeling the pressure of needing to have a path to leave the house and go to a bigger city, because our town was very small. There was no college, no university there. And at the same time, back there or in this school, we had to do what they call social work. This particular school, you could go on and get a college degree after that, high school, but you could also, it was like a technical school. There's very heavy workload, because you had to do all the regular subjects, math, biology, physics, all that stuff, and then your extra classes if you wanted to specialize, kind of like a short vocational career, to work in the wood mills, the forest. It's an area where was a lot of woodwork and just mills and so forth. So you had some basic training, because in small towns sometimes you just hey, I need to start working immediately, right? I don't need a 4 college degree. So it was, the workload because of that was very heavy. So I know I got even deeper into this fasting that I had been doing 3 years before, and now it got kind of back, but maybe even worse. So I was a little depressed, and I feeling pressure. I actually skipped school. I didn't go to school for like 3 weeks or a month. So I can see now it was the pressure probably that I was trying to fast for to cope. It was like escape, try to, maybe it was like a trigger or trying to grab attention from people. Hey, I'm feeling pressure. I don't know what to do, right? So that was like another flash point of how I believe all these conditions, the ulcerative colitis started compromising my immune system. And I was super tired. We had to go this uphill to high school. I could almost faint just going to this uphill because I was always so tired and weak. So that was high school. Eventually I managed, I got better, and the teachers say, he's a good student. We can just, let him go through, because all these 3 years he's been a great student, so we know he probably would be okay in college as soon as he graduates from high school. So I kind of managed with some trouble to go through it, but got my college degree or certificate and moved on to school to a bigger city with some relatives. And back there or back then in college, for a while it was okay, a couple of years, but then it was a private school, so money started being tight. Obviously have to start working part-time eventually. And eventually also I didn't think this degree, psychology, I was going for was what I wanted to do, so I kind of took time off. And then another dramatic event, another thing happened there. Mom got sick, and eventually, after a very long coma for months, she passed away, and that was another super hard thing to endure. Just psychological. It was very hard. But I didn't get sick. I was just like kind of like lost. It was a very big shock. So I was just trying to put myself together. That was college. So eventually I did like a couple of years, maybe 3 years of college altogether, between some pauses there. And eventually I moved to San Diego, right, with my sister for a year and change. Should have left, quicker out of her house, because I had work already. So eventually, also again after I moved to San Diego, I started doing working 2 jobs, sleeping very little, and it's the same deal, right? I went to college there also to get like a 2-year degree program, associates in computers. But when I was about to finish that degree, also at work there was another some not super serious but somehow serious trouble or problem there with at work. So I know that was another sort of trigger psychologically, stress related. And if you work in, and going to school full time and all this extra stress and the trouble in San Diego work and then college. So I had to pause again for about 3 months or so college, because at this point it all started, well, it was already kind of brewing, but the break point or where things really got really dramatic is that I hurt myself at work there, so lifting some tables, what have you. And then I went to this community clinic there in San Diego, say I got these really terrible pain. It's probably some muscle that I pulled, and they gave me some medication. But this is when everything starts going haywire and downhill completely. So they did give me this medication called Mobic, M-O-B-I-C, which I'm going to probably put some screenshots on the video. Later on, I figure or researched that this Mobic, if it wasn't prohibited, it was very regulated. It's a medication that is actually comes from Mexico or is made in Mexico and then imported. But I think at one point it got prohibited, or it was very restrictive. So, but I just got it. Take these pills. It's for the pain. And my research basically said, hey, this could cause ulcers. This could cause holes in your stomach and your intestine. So, wow. I mean, I know that's what happened, because after I got that Mobic, the day after, 1 or 2 days after, I started bleeding. Going to the bathroom. I would see bloody stools, and then I started having this horrible pain in my stomach. I couldn't stand it. It was like this burning sensation, and eventually I know that it was caused by this Mobic, I'm sorry. And so eventually that triggered that I couldn't go to work, I couldn't go to school. I was super tired, super weak. I couldn't keep any food in, and it was about close to 4 months that I was went to this clinic, even went to Tijuana across the border, because I didn't have full insurance to, go to a private doctor or pay with my insurance. And it was just like, you get some infection, both in the clinic in San Diego, both in Tijuana, which I stayed there for like a couple of days also in the hospital, because they thought it was some infection and resting and what have you, I'll be fine. But nothing like that happened. I didn't get better. I did get some rest. Stayed in the hospital for a couple of days, but that was it. And again, this would have been like sometime in April or May, early April or May of 2004. And I had to make a couple of trips to this hospital in San Diego with like a week apart, one from the other, late June and early July of 2004. So it was not till the second visit where I insisted, I went to the ER and I insisted, I need to be here, I need to be seen, but you got to do some lab work, some analysis, because it's not an infection, I'm not getting any better, and it's getting worse. So they kind of thought, okay, well, if you were here last week and now you're back and you're not feeling any better, then let's take a look. And yeah, that's what happened. About like 2 days or so after I was there, finally after so many months and people trying to say, oh, it's just an infection, finally the doctor there did a colonoscopy. And that's how finally, after months and this painful coming back and forth between doctors and places, they say, yeah, it's you have ulcerative colitis, you have ulcers in your colon. That's what causes the burning, the pain, the reason you cannot stand any meals and you vomit. And anyhow, so I got the standard prednisone, some steroids to bring down the inflammation, and then eventually I got put into Asacol for inflammation, more I wouldn't say better medication, but not as strong as a steroid. And then the other one is Imuran, which is kind of suppresses your immune system, which, I mean, it was better than the prior situation, but it wasn't really I guess that's the standard treatment. That's what I'm going to. It's not necessarily going to, heal you or cure you, because that's what doctors tell you. We don't know the cause of this disease or this condition, and there's no cure for it. You just manage. You treat yourself, and you pretty much are to be taking medications the rest of your life, right? Which, okay, well, I wasn't happy, but at least I knew there was some reason why I was having all these symptoms, and it was better to know than to not know it. And to wrap it up now, just want to touch on sort of alternative things that I've done recently that might be of some help for some of you if you have any autoimmune condition, Crohn's, colitis, or even some other things like diabetes. This is not a diagnosis, but things that might help you. So I've tried first Chinese alternative medicine back in San Diego, probably between 2010 and 2011. There were some teas that I was put on, and then there was some special diet with, the main things were to not eat meat other than duck, and I think fish was allowed also. And so dairy also was not recommended, and obviously not spicy food. So, but that kind of helped to a degree. But after about 8 months, I had to leave it. I didn't think it was I got it to a plateau where I couldn't really get any better. So I have to basically stop going to that doctor, because I think there was not really a permanent solution for me. Then I tried being vegan or vegetarian for about a few months at a time. This is now when I already moved here to Charlotte, where I live now. This probably would be in 2004, 2015. That helped to a degree of bringing down the inflammation. I know, because it helped with my runs, kind of the blisters that sometimes you get when you run super long distances, kind of either disappear or got a lot less severe, so it helps some, but it's not an 100% remission that I can say I can leave the medications. I'm still in that process. And the last thing, and now this is really the last thing to wrap it up, there's this new, I guess, type of medicine or protocols that I just came across, super new. I don't really consider myself an expert, but it's called, the protocols are the so-called German new medicine, and basically, in a nutshell, I'll put it on the screen for you guys to see what this is. But basically, this medicine, some of the basics are that there's always something dramatic, personal happening in your life that can trigger or make those symptoms or the disease more severe, which people usually don't pay attention to those things. They just think it's completely physical. So that's something to consider. It's Dr. Hammer, I think it's pronounced Hamer in German. And he got diagnosed, this is not super new, kind of late 70s, early 80s, I think 78. He got diagnosed with testicular cancer after his son got into an accident and eventually died. And the conclusion of that is that Dr. Hammer probably got testicular cancer because testicles in men have to do with, giving life, right? You reproduce your family, with your spouse, your partner, using the sperm from your testicles. So I'm going to wrap it up there, but there's some connection like that people usually don't pay attention, or Western medicine doesn't pay attention. So hopefully this is useful. Again, it maybe was a bit longer than most of my videos, but hopefully you find some use. Like the video if you found some benefit or it relates to you, and subscribe. And I expect to post some videos like these, maybe not as personal, but some that relate more to autoimmune conditions or boosting your immune system. So thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video.